Can you hear me? Yes. Great. Stand up. Let's do 5 of the best stretches. Do the Merv Hughes impersonation. I'm feeling very loved. Feel the love in the air. Great. Have a seat. Thanks everyone for coming. I wanted to talk to you today about caring for people with obesity or managing people of size. So a little bit of background information for you. Why is this so important for everyone, not just healthcare workers, is that 63.4% of us are now considered overweight or obese. Out of that group, 35.5% are considered overweight, 27.9% are obese. It's continuing to increase. Only 35% of our population are normal weight. Much smaller percent, 1.6%, are underweight. Out of that group, the majority are men. 70.8% of men are overweight compared with 56% of women. I'll give you a little bit of a comparison chart there. This information comes from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Unfortunately, they're a little bit behind the 8 ball. This data is from 2014 and already we're 3 years ahead of that. So the data is rapidly progressing. So we can expect to see an increase in that. There are some differences in the data looking at socioeconomic areas and areas of disadvantage. So women who live in areas of disadvantage, poorer communities, are more likely to be overweight or obese compared with other areas. Strangely, not so much difference between men, whether they're advantaged or disadvantaged. Regional areas, remote areas and cities also have differences. 61% of adults in major cities were overweight or obese, but slightly higher in those remote and community areas, perhaps where they have less access to some of that social support. Children, 1 in 4 are overweight or obese. So 7.4% of children in that category are in the obese. And we're talking severely obese, not just a little bit on the heavy side. There's been no change in this since 2012. So we're not getting any better. So future predictions, a little bit hard to see the pale blue line, but obesity in 1995 was only 19% of our population. And we've seen an increase to 35% in the coming years. 5% for morbid obesity, a jump staggered to be 13% in the next couple of years. So, some common terms that we talk about. Bariatric, what does that mean? It comes from the Greek word baros, meaning heavy or large, and in medicine, that's really about the treatment or medical surgical intervention for obesity. So weight loss surgery, those sorts of things. And through default, people of size have now been referred to as bariatric. And we hear a lot about bariatric equipment. It's become synonymous with people of size. But perhaps a better term or a more politically correct way of describing those people are people with obesity or people of size. BMI, we talk about a lot. Does anyone know what that is or you've heard of it before? Yeah, body mass index. So it's a combination of looking at your weight in kilograms compared with your height in centimetres. So to work out your body mass index, we have your weight over height squared, or is it the other way around? Other way around? Yeah. Height in centimetres divided by your weight squared. SWL, has anyone heard about that? Safe workload, previously known as the safe working limit. Why is this important? Any ideas? Sorry? Yeah, so the BMI, not so much is important when we're looking at equipment, but knowing the weight of the people that we're trying to assist is super important, because we then need to look at the equipment or the furniture, the fittings that we're using routinely, like a toilet bowl, for example. Everyone has to use it, but we don't know how much it's supposed to take safely. So knowing how much your equipment takes safely is important to understand, and then also knowing how much your person or yourself weighs before you use that piece of equipment to make sure that they match. The understanding of the safe workload is quite poor in our industry, because when I tell you that a hospital bed takes 185 kilos as its safe workload, a lot of people assume that means I can put a person weighing 185 kilos on the bed, but it doesn't mean that. It means everything you add to the frame of the bed adds up to 185. A hospital mattress weighs easily 15 kilos. Then you've got a monkey bar, some pumps, some bed linen. It's Tasmania in winter, so we have a lot of bed linen. And then we have a big heavy person. So when we add all of that up, that may exceed your 185 kilos quite easily. So when I have people complain to me about the bed mechanics not working, it's often because we've exceeded the safe working load. Weight bias. Have you heard of this before? It's an interesting phenomenon, and it happens across a lot of different areas, but weight bias in this instance is particularly talking about how we feel and how we react to people of size, and how we might inadvertently discriminate against a person of size when we're offering care.
Being fat is unhealthy, and I know this for a lot of different reasons. I know it because I'm on high blood pressure medication, I know it because I'm on diabetes medication, and I know it because my doctor tells me I'm not healthy. Even if it wasn't for all that, I'd still know, because books and movies and magazines, music, television, the internet, they all remind me every day that being fat is wrong. Being fat is something to be laughed at or be made fun of, that fat people should be shamed, and they try to make me feel ashamed. I had a friend named Matt who was always making fun of me for being fat. We'd go out to eat and he'd make fun of how much I ate, and we'd go for a walk and he'd make fun of how easily I got out of breath, or he'd make fun of the clothes I wear or the way that I looked. And one day I had enough and I cornered him and I said, Matt, why are you always making fun of me? Why do you always hurt my feelings? Why do you want me to feel bad about myself? And he says, Boogie, I'm worried about you. I find the shape of your body and the way that you look, the way that you can't breathe, the amount that you eat disgusting. And I'm surprised you don't find it disgusting. And I'm trying to make you feel ashamed of who you are and make you feel bad about it so that you'll make the decision to make a change. He was right about one thing. He did make me feel really, really bad about myself. So we would go out for lunch, and I'd order lunch, and he would make fun of me for how much I was eating. And that made me feel bad. So I'd order dessert, because dessert makes me feel good. Or we'd go out for a walk, and he would make fun of me because I couldn't walk very far because of my weight and my knees and my back. Or I couldn't breathe very good. Eventually, I stopped hanging out with Matt. Unfortunately for me, Matt's not the only person that does this. Every time I log on to the internet, someone's making fun of fat people on Facebook or Reddit. Every time I turn on the television and I watch one of my favorite shows, every time I see a photoshopped image of someone who looks impossibly skinny, I realize that I'm not part of that exclusive club of young, hip, attractive, beautiful, skinny people. In fact, I'm part of a completely different group. A group that gets made fun of every day, and gets mocked, and gets tortured, and gets shamed. And do you know what that makes me want to do? It makes me want to eat. I'm not fat just because I like food. Skinny people like food. They're not fat. In fact, for most very large people, overeating isn't the problem, just a symptom of a larger problem that can stem from anxiety disorders, depression, or other psychological illnesses. And so we eat. We eat because it stops the anxiety for a little while. We eat because it pushes the depression away. Every time I catch you staring, and every joke I'm not supposed to hear, every time you make fun of me on the internet, it makes my self-esteem smaller. It makes me more anxious and more depressed. So I eat. So you know what? I'm not proud to be fat. But I'm not ashamed either. This is my body. And you know what? I hate it. I hate my giant man tits. I hate my neck. I hate my fat, disgusting neck. I hate my gut that hangs to the ground and makes it hard to walk. I hate my breaking back. I hate my aching knees. I hate every inch of the body I'm in. But you know what? I'm not ashamed. Maybe I will figure out what went wrong in my head to make me do this to myself. And maybe I won't. Maybe I will lose the weight, or maybe I will die fat and young. But I'll tell you what, your hate-filled bullshit isn't going to make a difference either way.
What he goes on to say is that he knows he's overweight and people call him lots of different names, and instead of that making him feel like he should get up and go to the gym and exercise and lose weight, he is shamed about his size, so he comfort eats. And then he feels guilty about comfort eating, so he eats some more. And it's a vicious circle, and it goes on and on and on. He knows that he's overweight, that he's obese, that he's severely obese, and if he doesn't stop, he's going to die. And he knows that because he's diabetic, and he's on a lot of medications for a lot of other comorbidities that affect his health. But it increases his lack of resilience to cope with the bullying that he gets, I guess, because he knows that and he's trying to make a difference, but he can't because he keeps shaming him. So it's a vicious circle. So size and shape is important when we're looking at how we might help people. So what we look at specifically is where the adiposity is. Where is their weight? Where is their size? So here's a couple of different types of size and shapes. So the first lady is showing that she has a pear shape, quite a lot of weight around her bottom. She's got a gluteal shelf and large thighs. Our shape in the middle is the apple shape, which is really obvious, very round protuberance in the middle. And then a side view of what we call the pannus. No, not penis, pannus. Abdominal pannus is that large apron that hangs down at the front, and it stretches the muscles and skin, and the abdominal contents then fall down. So you get this huge overlay. So it's really shocking to see that picture because often they can't stand because they have so much weight sitting on their legs, which then inhibits their ability to mobilise. So what does that do? What does that mean? Here we go. The effects of size limit the way that they can interact in society. How do they get around if they don't have a scooter that fits them or is able to take their weight? They don't fit into furniture very well. So standard sized chairs might have a higher weight rating, but they don't have enough depth to accommodate a gluteal shelf, or they don't have the width that they need. Transporting for the emergency services can also be extremely challenging with people of size. We've got different lifting and scooping devices for raising people, but they're often very narrow, spinal boards, for example, and they also have quite a low weight rating. That's even made more challenging when you have to get them in a very small hole, like in an aeroplane. So, this is what I tell people. I've got no idea how to do your job, but my book says you're doing it wrong. So how do we go from here? What are the challenges and how do we fix them? Well, for a start, we work as a team and we do it my way. Kidding. Okay, so what do we need? Find out ahead of time. So knowing the weight's important, but visualising how big the person is also helps you to plan how much size and space you might need to accommodate. Practice scenarios about handling people of size whenever you can, because just like when you learn to drive a car, the more you practice, the better you get at it, the less you have to think about it. Increase your stock of equipment. You saw the statistics. Obesity is increasing, it's not going away, and it affects every facet of our community. So people at home need special furniture in their homes. When they go out to the shopping centre, to the doctor, to clinic appointments, they need larger seats. They need disability access to toilets and other facilities. So we need to plan for how we can manage that across their life journey, right up to the funeral home. Provide training in using the new equipment. It's no point getting the big stuff and then you don't know how to use it, so you don't. How do you choose the right equipment? Well, we want to know the size and the weight of the person. Is that approximate? Is it a guesstimate? Or is it their actual weight? Because there's a very big difference between what you guess and what is the reality.
And there's also a difference, like working in the acute sector, and when we're pre-admitting patients, if we're pre-admitting on the phone, there's often a difference with what patients will tell you what their weight is, and then when you actually do meet them and sit on the scale, it's really quite different. And maybe that's because they don't know, or maybe that's because there's a shame around that, and they don't want to say those words out loud. But that is a real problem.
It is. It's a real problem everywhere, and what I didn't mention earlier on when we were talking about the definition of bariatrics is the criteria for what is bariatric across Australia is so varied. There is no hard and fast rule, although there probably needs to be a discussion about making some set guidelines for that. So at the Royal, our criteria for what constitutes a person of size or bariatric is greater than 120 kilos because standard furniture stops at that. So anything that's more than 120 is specialised. And also body mass index greater than 40. So one or both of those often indicates to us that we need to look at specialised furniture and fittings and equipment. But that varies for the ambulance, for the Royal Flying Doctor Service, for different hospitals, and that's just in the state, not alone comparing the rest of Australia. So knowing that information is super important. What's also important is what is the purpose of the equipment that you're choosing, and does it meet the needs of what you want it to do? Because a lot of equipment sometimes is used outside the square, not for its intended purpose, which can lead to some other issues. Has it been scripted? And what does that actually mean? Any OTs in the room? At least one. So scripting is a really important thing that we often do quite poorly, which is why there's experts, and that's about fitting furniture and equipment to your individual. So knowing how deep a chair should be, how wide it should be, how high it should be, are all really important factors. If you're transporting someone, whether they've got head support and whether they're secured in an appropriate way, all part of the equipment management. Does it meet the needs of the person and the task being performed? Because sometimes two different things. And at the end, when we're following those hazardous manual task code of practice and we're spotting the hazard and we're assessing the risks and then we're controlling it, at the end we need to evaluate or review the effectiveness of those controls. Does that piece of equipment make it easier, or is it now more challenging, or have we created new issues? So we really need to review whether that equipment has made it better for us or not. So what have we got? Well, in terms of getting around, there's lots of different mobility aids, and recently I discovered that you can get forearm crutches for 300 kilo safe workload. And we got them. We've got some gutter frames. There's a different variety here. We've got 4 prongs, we've got wheeled, we've got skids, we've got the 4 wheelie walkers. Forearm support frames when we need something a little bit more upright or something to lean on. Wheelchair options, are they manual or electric? Hoisting, steadies. Furniture, so a range of seating options. The chair in the middle is a commode chair, comes in different sizes, but it also has special padding that you can place over the top to use as a chair. Wide options, different types of commodes and stools, whether they're wheeled. A lot of these pictures show telescopic legs, but when we're dealing with people of size, having legs that are adjustable seems like a good idea, but have you seen the size of the little pin that holds those legs in place? That's a high amount of force on a little tiny area, so often we try and avoid having height adjustable furniture, which then makes scripting much more difficult because you don't have a one-size-fits-all solution. Questions for me? All right, 5 of the best, up you get.